South Africa, the continent's most advanced economy, is trying to make the most of its government of national unity, which was put together at the end of the general elections back in May of 2024. Today, South Africa faces even more challenges, no thanks to geopolitics, President Trump's tariffs war, among other headwinds. So what is the future of South Africa in today's rapidly changing world? Here are excerpts from this webinar held by the Institute of Security Studies.
Let's start. We've got a whole lot of lists here, okay? In terms of, what we could do, what South Africa should do. What's your single most important reform that you could do in the short term, let's say, starting with you, Busi, and in the long term? So short term and the long term reform, what's the actual priority? Where do we have to just pin that?
Oh my goodness, you have to limit it to one, Karen.
Okay.
So just one.
I know. We won't hold you to that. It's the only one. You could just one of the. Okay, right.
Absolutely. So I really think that in the short term, and thank you very much for the invitation to the ISS. In the short term, I have to say, amongst the few that I have in mind, which I think the current tariff reimposition and the need for us to probably maybe look at alternative markets is one. But I really think we have a powerful opportunity, Carol, with the municipal elections that are actually coming up next year, right? It is 2026. It is in the next 12 months. Carol, we can vote differently. Carol, we can choose different leaders. When I engage with this report, when I look at what has been put together, at the conclusion, it talks about the importance of having the right leadership, as some of the recommendations. It talks about the fact that the need, if we are going to achieve sustainable growth and reduce inequality, we must focus on competent leadership, on evidence-based policies and fostering a culture of accountability and inclusivity. And I really think that we often give our power away as the electorate in terms of putting the right people in power, right? I mean, look at Joburg, look at the destination, look at the mass. So as long as we continue as the followership, we often think that the power is with the politics. We actually are wrong. We put them in power. We give them the mandate. We allow them, to do whatever it is that they are doing. So I really think that people can vote differently and we can actually take our power back and put leadership that is actually intent on really building the economy and changing things around. From a long-term perspective, I have to say that I think what the report suggests in terms of the infrastructure investment that is actually happening at the moment, that is absolutely powerful. It is powerful, Carol, because when you do the level of infrastructure investment that we're seeing at the moment, when you are ushering the reforms at the rate that we're actually seeing at the moment, you are actually then improving the trading environment within which business operates. And if the trading environment is improved, business confidence goes up. If business confidence goes up, investment comes in. If investment comes in, the economy grows at the right level. And if the economy grows at the right level, then, you deal with the stubbornly high levels of unemployment. Even the informal economy that we're actually talking about, that is probably going to grow at a marginal rate, in the next 10 years, does have an opportunity to be boosted if the overall economy is actually performing. But while we continue at this subpar 1% GDP economic growth, in real terms, we actually don't have a chance as a country. So if I were to choose one, let's vote differently, and definitely that's the intent on the infrastructure investment and the reform agenda that we're on as a country.
Well, I mean, those are incredibly good choices. Thank you, Busi. I didn't expect you to come up with a political solution because people generally tend to look at the economic solutions. But I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that is the case. And if people who are living in Joburg, lucky for me, I'm not. But I don't think it's an easy place to live, a good place to live, and you need to do something about your leaders. Well, what are your thoughts? I mean, is there something that you could identify and say, let's do it, let's do this one thing?
Yeah, I think, Carol, Busi built nicely on Yaki's point of saying the solution lies on a political, and I think they've covered that yes. path onto what could happen there. But what I would remind us on, Carol, is that, I mean, if you think back in 2012, at the time the National Development Plan comes out, we were talking about what needed to be done in order to increase the level of investments in South Africa. And the figure that many people talked about when they're thinking about the gross fixed capital formation or investments, they were talking about 30% that was targeted at the time.
Yeah.
And if you look at where that figure is today and the trend that we have been in a recent past, we are sitting somewhere between 13 and 14%, which then for me leads me to one thing to say, building up on Busi's point, and which I agree fully, as well as what the Deputy Minister and Yaki was saying, we do need to boost the sentiment, both business as well as consumer confidence, in order to draw in that investment, which I think is crucial for us to begin to see the growth that we talk about. Because the sectorial reforms and what needs to happen in the South African economy, I mean, a number of the documents have actually spoken about that. You can go back to just before COVID to the Tito paper of 2019, which took a sectorial basis of what needed to be done. We were clear as a country about those interventions. The Treasury, where the Deputy Minister is sitting, was clear on that. Even the OV now, I still think that it is fairly clear on that path about that. So the conditions then for me of what I would sum up on, I would say, the political stability is necessary. And this is where I think, Yaki, I agree with you folks there at ISS in this report. Either that is on GNU or whatever form, but I would think for me, the durability of the GNU is the most important thing that we have to achieve as a country. The second aspect, I would say, a build-up on the success that we are already seeing. I mean, the Deputy Minister spoke about, if it was Lintiaki, the electricity reforms and the gains that we are making on that. And I would say continuing on that and getting on some of the interventions that are underway in the logistics and the Transnet is one part of that. And the key focus also would have to be on this issue of crime and corruption, because ultimately then we see it links to the point that you are saying about the local governance, because you see a lot of that problem arising in them. Either it's arising political or it's arising on how we need to iron up and improve that local governance structure. I would say that's something that also really weighs down on us. And I would lastly then close it again on the aspect of saying ultimately, I mean, we are an export-oriented economy, a small open economy broadly. So how we deal diplomatically one way with the US right now is important, but also just generally on opening up as many trade agreements as possible as a country.